Good morning and welcome to a dialogue on the impact of climate change for women in the informal sector, SME, and how should Uganda's budget formulation process mitigate the impact. And in studio, I'm joined by three people who are going to talk about this, and that is Esther Namboka, Executive Director, Girls Forum International, John Kakungulu Walugembe, Executive Director, Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises Uganda, and Elliot Orizarwa, Founder and Executive Director, Women and Girl Child Development Association. And today, if you want to be part of this conversation, the hashtag is Make Care Count. Go to our social media platforms, that is on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube, and be part of the conversation. Make a comment or a suggestion or share an experience. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Idris.
Thank you, Idris.
Now, I'll start with Elliot on the far left. Tell us about your organization and what do you do as a company?
Tamatu. My name is Elliot Orizarwa Tumwijuche. I work for the organization that deals with women issues, and that is Women and Girl Child Development Association, that was founded in 2009, and we are partners with the Uganda Women's Network. Our mission is to mobilize women from rural areas and towns to make sure that we sit with them, create ideas together to be able to involve in the development processes.
All right.
To add on that,
yes,
I am happy that I am the chairperson of Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, and definitely discussing climate change financing is part of ourselves.
And we are happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
Mr. Kakungulu, although you are a usual suspect, please tell us about your company and what's your mandate.
Okay, thank you, Idris. The Federation of SMEs is the umbrella body of all micro, small and medium-sized businesses in Uganda. Yes. As you know, Uganda has between 1.5 to 2.5 million SMEs. The majority of these are women. 93% of all small businesses are micro in nature, and about 65% of these are women-led. So this discussion concerns me because that's a big constituency that we represent. So as an association, we are a voice for this sector, but we are also a capacity builder. We implement programs and projects in order to capacitate SMEs, in order to become more competitive and to thrive. So yes, we advocate, but we also do. So we think, we talk, but also do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to continue with the introduction, I'll come to Ms. Esther Namboka. Please tell us about Girls Forum.
Okay, thank you very much. Esther Namboka is my name, and I'm the Executive Director of Girls Forum International. This is an NGO that fosters stable and economically empowered families, but with great focus on the empowerment of vulnerable women and girls. Yeah. This topic is very important and a very great item on my heart, because Girls Forum very much focuses on the informal women, and it's an honor to be here today with you. Thank you.
So today we are talking about the impact of climate change on women. Could you just break down in your company what are some of the observations that you've made that have affected women under climate change?
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, as we are aware that climate change in Uganda has affected a great number of our population, and most especially the women who rely mostly on the agricultural sector. So we realize that with the changes in the climate, where we are experiencing floods, with landslides, this in a way has affected the well-being of our population, and especially the women. So you realize that with the changes in the climate, there is displacement, there is violence, and there is also the unavailability of women to put food on the tables. So climate change is a very big discussion for us today, to see how the government can be able to intervene and make sure that the impact is less effect to the population and especially the women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mami, Walge, have you observed that some of the SME members to your foundation, to your organization, how have they been impacted by climate change? I know Esther has mentioned a little bit about it, but could you further expound?
Okay, so as we see, there have been changes in weather patterns, and as she mentioned, in some areas you're seeing floods, in some areas you're seeing water shortages, and so on. Now, these kinds of climatic changes tend to have a disproportionate greater impact on women because women have a higher labor force participation rate, particularly in the agricultural sector. Now, if you're talking about fuel shortages and them having to walk long distances to fetch firewood, it means that they are spending more time engaging in unpaid work. If you're talking about water shortages and they have to spend 1 or 2 days looking for water, it means they are spending more time engaging in unpaid work. So it means climate change is disenfranchising the participation of women into more formal enterprises. So whereas a man is busy working from 8 to, I don't know, maybe to 6 p.m., a woman has to spend 5 hours first looking for water, first fetching firewood, before she can come to run her business. So that impacts on their ability to run viable businesses. No wonder most women tend to run very micro businesses in the informal sector that struggle to survive and to reach their first or second birthday. Yes.
Miss Elliott, Mr. Walgeba has mentioned something that has caught my attention, and that is unpaid work. Could you just describe what that is like in Uganda and what some of the jobs that are unpaid that women find themselves doing?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I want to appreciate Mr. Walgende that he's a man, but he still really brings out issues of unpaid care work. Yeah, all the time, maybe before 2002, people looked at women as women who are supposed only to be at home. But from that time, we have seen women coming out to do what he's talking about in terms of small, medium enterprises. But we still have a very big percentage of women that are doing work that is unpaid. And coming back to your question, yes, when we talk about unpaid care work is where you find that women usually do the triple roles, and the triple roles takes on productive work, reproductive work, and community care work. And I would just put the what we want to look at in terms of unpaid care work on the community care work, where you find that majority of women stay home, cook, and usually we call them home-based workers. We use the workers, we use the unpaid care work because they wake up in the morning, as he said, when he talked about the work that they do in 24 hours. And he really mentioned it very well that women only work for 6 hours, but women work beyond that. And then you find that they are not paid. They have to produce children, they have to produce food, they have to cook it, they have to wash, they have to go to the shamba and dig, as Esther talked about the agriculture percentages for women. And then you find that we don't value it, we don't put a cost on that work. And then you find what Walgembe was saying, that when climate change becomes a problem, then there's no water, and then women have to go far to fetch water, and then no one puts a value on that woman who has gone to fetch water. And I just want again to bring it that unpaid care work is not only for women, but even for girls. Then you find that girls also have to move around, fetch water, go and collect firewood, go and fetch water. But we have not seen any value attached. We have not seen any person when coming out with any costing and any pricing at your household, coming to put a cost on these things, and definitely really affect women so much. That's how I can really unpack unpaid care work.
Miss Esther.
Maybe to also add a little bit on what Elliot just said. When we come to statistics, we realize that actually globally, 89% of women are engaging in unpaid care and domestic work, while their counterparts, the men, are engaging in the more productive work. They're in the offices. Now, to bring it back home, you realize that this is one of the causes of actually domestic violence. because the men back home will think that it's the women and the girls to do the domestic work. So you realize that unpaid care puts on a female face. And in so doing, the girls stay back home. They cannot go to school. They are not able to participate in income-generating activities. They are back home carrying firewood. They are taking care of their siblings. They are not able to progress when it comes to their education. Look at the women back home, especially these ones in the who stay at home. The stay-at-home mothers. They keep home, take care of the home, maintain the well-being of the children. But at one point, you realize that the men will come and tell them that you're doing nothing. You're my wife, we have taken 17 years together, but you've not added anything to this home. But this gentleman forgets that you're coming to office very smart, you're being able to find a meal on the table is a lot more of work. So when it comes to unpaid care and amplifying the voice, we are trying to say, let it begin from home. Let the men, let the population, let the country realize that unpaid care and domestic work contribute significantly to the economic development of the nation, because the functioning of the society or community relies hugely on the unpaid care and domestic work, which actually, when it comes to statistics, we have a contribution of 16 billion hours on a daily spent on unpaid care, and yet most of these are done by women and girls and not recognized.
What do you think fuels this mentality of thinking that it's the women who are supposed to do all these kinds of jobs that you're talking about, fetching water, ironing, maintaining a home? What do you think fuels that mentality in society?
Okay, this is mainly fueled by the society norms and cultures. We all grow up knowing that it's this work, cooking, cleaning, mopping, it's a girl's job. It's a woman's job. So you find that the men will sit in their sitting room, watch TV, will watch movie to movie, go out with the boys, while the girls and the women are back home breaking with work. And this is not only just an issue to say this is even actually depriving the women from progressing, but it's also a health concern. You realize many women struggle with health complications of the back, the chest. You find a woman who has given birth, maybe Caesar, or before she even gets to heal, she's already washing the clothes of the baby. She's washing her own clothes, and the man is not coming in to assist. So it's more of how we have been raised, how the society sees domestic work and unpaid care to only be a women and girls concern, which is for us here, our work is to say no. If you cook, Mr. Idris, does anything happen to you?
I do.
Do you fall sick? Actually, it's more romantic. If at all I saw my husband or if I saw my spouse going to the kitchen to cook me a meal, bring me food in the bedroom, carry the baby as I'm cleaning the house, or he's cleaning the house as I'm doing something different. And so doing, it actually saves time on me as a woman to also go and participate in more income generating activities. If we distribute this work still, you do something, I also do some work, and we save this time, I'm able to earn a living, I'm able to earn some income, which I'll bring back home to support the family. So I think this is something that we need to, as society and whoever is watching us out there, it starts from where you are seated. What are you doing to help that woman and the girl to be able to participate in other income generating activities, more productive work, and mostly take up leadership in the key positions of this country or in our communities?
Mr. Olgem, do you sit back and watch TV, and what can be done for men to actually realize and change this mentality that it's the women who have to do all this unpaid work?
Allow me to also defend the men a bit.
Kindly do.
So these societal norms, unfortunately, are not just perpetuated by men, sometimes by the women themselves. If I wake up every day and I'm in the kitchen, at some point my wife may get uncomfortable. What's wrong with this man who is always in the kitchen? You see, so you find that you're trying to break some of these established societal norms, but then you create a new crisis, because in her mind that's her territory. So I think we all need re-education to ensure that, and secondly, because we are talking about unpaid, there are some men who genuinely can't cook, or if they cook, it's disastrous. You know, people will sleep hungry because the food really can't be eaten. So if that is the case and the man can't, then at least compensate your wife for the time that she's doing. That's why you are saying unpaid. You quantify and say, okay, my wife is spending all this time, she's making an effort. You know, compensate her because she's putting in the time so that it's a bit more fair. So, but that's not to say that men shouldn't cook, or men should also do their fair bit in the home and outside the home, and should allow the women to also play part in the home and outside the home. But constraining the ability of women to thrive in productive activity is something that we cannot promote as an association. We want to ensure that our women are also able to run businesses, and those businesses are able to grow. Moreover, the money that women make in their businesses tends to go back directly into the welfare of the family. You know, when the man makes money, you see more alcohol, you see more this, more useless things really. But for the woman, if she earns more money, you see it in the quality of education of her children. You see it in the health of the family. So it's, and most of us, by the way, we are what we are because of our mothers. At least for me and for most men, I know that to be a fact. Yeah. So if we all know, why is it that when we grow, we now turn around and we take this other side, yet we were raised by our mothers through their hard work. Some of them are running small businesses. It should be our duty that to ensure that, yes, we are men, but we know that by supporting our wives, by supporting our daughters, that's how this society is going to really grow and excel. Yeah.
Miss Elliott.
Wow.
The idea of valuing unpaid care work, is it too abstract to apply in Uganda? Mr. Walugembe mentions a scenario where mothers who have decided to be homemakers should be paid by their husbands. Do you see this happening? Compensated. And it should be a salary, he says. How do you see this being applied?
I don't know whether compensation is paying a salary. I don't know whether compensation is a wage.
How would you term it?
When Mr. Walugembe was submitting, I almost like said, I think the next thing we need to do, we need to go to Walugembe's home and do a gender audit. And
no, I'm okay.
He did. Yeah. We shouldn't come.
Yes.
No, I'm comfortable. You should pass by.
Yes. I just want to take the conversation back. Why are we saying that really climate change is a problem, and then climate change also affects us as women, and then affects the unpaid care work? And when I come back to your question of adding value, when you go through Uganda's levels of development, where we are coming from and where we are now, first of all, the changing of the norms is very critical. And where Mr. Walugembe is saying that there are men who cook, but then sometimes their wives chase them. Again, it goes back to what Esther was talking about. But what are we saying? If Uganda as a country continues seeing at these norms as positive, and looking at the negative norms and without changing them, what is going to happen? First of all, Esther and Mr. Walugembe talked about the climate change processes, where we have the floods, where we have the landslides, and where we have looked at this connected to the value that we are talking about. If there is no water, if you have no budget for water, for let's say a certain community, and then this woman is going to go and fetch water and coming back to cook, and then it is too late for this person, then it means gender-based violence is going to arise in that household. If there are floods, let's say if we use the example of Kasese, remember when the floods were high, how much did Uganda spend? And what happened in that scenario? Because if there's climate change, it means that we have, let's say, the slides in Kasese, the Nyamamba River has just been washed away. But remember, then we have women in the community, we have girls in the community. There are schools in the community, there are hospitals in the community, where government of Uganda has allocated money, but has not really allocated money for climate change. And then it means this girl is not going to go to school, and this girl is going to stay home, meaning that this girl is going to get married before the age. Then we have cases of child marriage at that level. We have, again, a challenge if there is that floods in Kasese. It means these women are not going to go to do their work, the agriculture work, the production work, bringing food on the table. Soil has been washed away. Then it means we are not going to, again, manage insecurity in terms of food, then famine within the community, and then affect again, because it means there is no food, which Mr. Bogembe is talking about, the women to go and sell in the market. Remember, in this community in Kasese, definitely we have schools. Teachers will not manage to go to school. And that's why we're saying it is very, very important, first of all, to add value on that unpaid pair work. So if this woman is at home, I don't know how we can really unpack the issue of compensation. For us, I don't think we shouldn't really even call it as a compensation. First of all, in Uganda, we have a program of protection, the SAGE. But how much money is in the SAGE that if these women have been affected by the floods, have been affected by the landslides, the dryness, how is Uganda going to come in? Do we have some money that is separated for climate change, that if it happens, I'm going to go to Owino market and find stalls, bring women in Kasese, put them in the market and give them money to continue if there is that problem. I want us also to go at the international level. Why the Sustainable Development Goals, and mainly the Sustainable Development Goal 13, why is it that we feel that it should be linked to the goal number 5 of gender equality? We have seen inequalities that have caused by climate change. And we've seen at the UN level trying to say no. If there is an issue of climate change, let us involve women. At planning level, at implementation level, to the end. But if you go back to what we do from our home, if let's say your father, Mr. Matu,
yes.
if your father is going to talk about cutting the trees in that shamba, my brother, your father is not going to involve your mother, and your sister is also not going to be involved. But remember, there are those concerns, as Esther said. This woman is going to wake up in the morning, going to the shamba to look for firewood, and the trees are already cut. But remember, you did not involve. So I'm just starting at the household, but again, even at national level, at planning level, I don't think our policies really bring in women to be able to be consulted. What can we do if there are floods? What can we do if we get this dry season that take a long time? Because we know definitely that, again, the 75% of women are going to be in agriculture. And they're not involved in climate change meetings. They're not participating at consultative level. Even at implementation level, are not there. There's a case in scenario when we had the green growth and the carbon markets. Men, you find men in meetings. You know, we want you to grow trees like 100 acres. But how many women do have acres of land? We have almost only 20% of women that own land. So it means they have to be at home. They have to do the unpaid care work. And that is, I think, what Mr. Bogembe is saying, and Esther, that we must add value. And we are not saying that we add value by, like, if a man is earning 1 million, bring 500,000. No, let's do costing. And say, no, this woman from morning, if we use the 24-hour clock, that this woman woke up at 6 o'clock, had to go to the kitchen, prepare food. I'm not using this woman in Nakasero. I am talking about this woman, my mother, your grandmother, your sister who is married in Chanamkaka, you know, and you want her to produce 100 kilograms of maize using a hoe. Go back and start that work. 6 o'clock, serve food, do reproductive roles, you know. Take this child to school. Maybe it has rained, run and go and pick her because the floods are coming. So that's why we're saying that from that international level, let's see that Uganda, if Uganda is planning and budgeting, let Uganda plan to put a cost on climate change. Let Uganda plan to look for the ways of how to protect this uncared paid person.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Mr. Walugembe, there is an acute example of how women are basically relied on in the north. If you've been to the Karamoja area,
Yes.
mostly you find that it's the women who are going out to look for food and
Not
probably
just in
do
the
this
Karamoja
hard-
area.
Well, and she talks
The men
about
are in trading centers taking alcohol and playing those
Ludo.
kinds of things. Yeah.
unfortunate. She talks about, Miss Elliott talks about the issue of excluding women in policy making. And the current government boasts in the fact that they have put women at the forefront. Do you think it's the situation of pushing away women, or is actually something being done?
Well, first of all, I'm happy to applaud government for improving gender parity with regard to participation of women, at least in the governance level.
Yeah.
When I see national events these days, you find that men are becoming endangered because
An endangered species.
the vice president, prime minister, the speaker, the first deputy prime minister, the so on. So you find that we start somewhere, the third deputy, maybe the fourth. I don't know if it's even there. But so that's good. Yeah, that's good. But at the same time, if you're looking at women at the lower levels, I think we shouldn't just look at just participation. We should look at influence and the ability to influence decisions at that level. And that's why we're talking about, first at the national level, we want to see more gender responsive and climate change responsive macroeconomic policies. Policies that make credit available to women. Recently there was a discussion regarding fiscal policies that are also able to ensure that the tax regime is friendly to women-run businesses and to green businesses. Recently there was a discussion regarding the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program and the Ministry of Gender that was to be subsumed under the Parish Development Board. I don't know how that discussion ended, but the women really this time said, no, this one thing that we have, we cannot allow it to end up under the bigger basket. So what we want to see government do is to come up with more gender responsive and climate change responsive policies, both on the monetary level and on the fiscal level. The other issue is we need to ensure that we make our social protection more robust. You know, very few women, especially in the informal sector, are covered currently by the social protection scheme that we have. I know that the NSSF regime was revised to ensure that every business contributes, but we believe that that is not enough. We need to do more to ensure that we have a social protection regime for women, particularly those in the informal sector. The other issue is around productive assets. She talked about the issue of land. Yesterday we were in a meeting. The World Bank is giving the government lots of money. I can't recall how much, but it's a lot of money to ensure that it titles customary land in the east and in the north of Uganda. You see? But government needs to do more now. This is donor funded, but what's government doing to ensure that women are empowered, to ensure that they own productive assets? They own the land. I'll stop with a story. When I was starting to work, I worked in Palsa, and this man died. He only had daughters, so in his will, he said, my daughters will take the land. The brothers, as when he was alive, the brothers didn't really disagree. But as soon as he died, they said to hell, these girls are going to, they are going to bring men on our customary land? No, 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 it's not possible. So the mother of these girls went to court. And the judge, they won the case. After the court case, the judge said, let's go and inspect the land so that we, whatever. This uncle went and pulled out a panga and chopped the magistrate on the ground. And you can imagine these girls ran away. They couldn't take ownership. So the issue of productive assets, we shouldn't just put it in the laws, but we should ensure that there are mechanisms to enforce that women are able to own the assets that is, because you can't borrow if you don't have a land title. And if you can't borrow, it means you always run a micro business because you have to rely on personal savings. So these are some of the things that I think should be done at the policy level to ensure that women benefit from the growth that we're experiencing as a country.
Ms. Esther, we have established that unpaid care that falls under the informal sector, and most women who probably do agriculture, sell tomatoes on the street, are facing a challenge because of the impact of climate change, whereby now you can't grow your fruits. You can't do this in a particular season. You have long spells of dry seasons, and it goes back to being unpaid because you're not getting a source of income. Now, there are wealth creation vehicles such as WEP, Youth Livelihood Project, and Emyoga, and etc. Could this be the solution?
Okay. Thank you very much. And maybe just before getting to that, I want to throw a hint on what my colleagues, Mr. Walugembe and Elliot, have mentioned on compensation, when it comes to compensation. Of course, when we speak compensation, when it comes to unpaid care, it raises a lot of, you know, concern from the public. Say, oh, so they want us to pay our women to do the work in the house, you know. So you want me to pay my wife for producing? You want me to pay my wife? No. Actually, the conversation should be in actually looking at 4 areas of concern. And that is recognition of the unpaid care. Let the country, let the nation, let you, the members of public, recognize that unpaid care, cooking, mopping, taking care of the children is actually work, and work which needs to be appreciated and actually given a good recognition that it's actually work. And I have seen many couples struggle when it comes to separation. The men are saying, you know, you did not put a brick on this house. They tell me how much you put here, but this gentleman forgets how much I did in making sure that the welfare of himself and the children is in
not just a house, but a home.
Yes. So if we have this, other than talking about compensation, let's talk about recognition first. Number 2, let's look at reduction of this work. And the reduction has been hinted on by my colleague Elliot. She has given an example in the budget processes of water, when it comes to accessibility of water. But before we get to water, we also have to look at things like electricity, availability of electricity, which is going to help in the reduction of of the work. I usually like using this example that long time ago we used to have those metallic iron boxes. I don't know,
yes.
I really don't think
I've used them.
I've really used them, where you would put charcoal and you stand on the veranda and so now we are saying that time that's what we were using, and you find that it takes a lot of time to even iron your own shirt or your own dress, so that you save some time to do something different. But with the iron box, you have electricity, just plug in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you're off running. So when it comes to budget processing, we are saying let's have the taxes on some of these social services actually reduced, so that the work reduces on the burden on both the men and the women, the men and the women. And then we're also looking at redistribution, when we are saying that let this work be redistributed among the family members. I've seen homes who are having over 20 family members, but only 1 or 2 people are actually toiling with this work. Look at our housemates. A big percentage of them are girls. Actually, when somebody tells me, Esther, I need a housemaid or house helper, I will not look for a boy. Man. Why? Because the society, how we have all been raised, we are saying this kind of work is for the girl. Let us change that kind of narrative. Then we talk about representation. These are the 4 R's. That is recognition, reduction, redistribution, and representation. Let us have women sit on those decision-making tables where the budgets are being cut, you know, and we are saying that our country actually is focusing more on infrastructure, security, and actually it's not paying a lot of effort on these services which directly benefit the well-being of the people. So And back to just a bit to your question, which is it was in line
the
with
wealth creation vehicles.
The world, yes, the world.
Yoga, web,
yes,
youth livelihood. Do you
Yeah.
think they are the solution to
Yeah.
to this unpaid care problem?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to appreciate the government for the role it's doing in amplifying the voices of the women, and at the same time increasing our visibility, especially in the spaces of leadership. And just the way my friend here has mentioned that women are now, we are now, if you turn this side, you're saying a woman, with VP woman, you're saying. So for us, we are really so much, we are happy and grateful to the government. And yes, some of these initiatives, when it comes to the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, the Youth Livelihood, yes, they contribute a lot when it comes to bringing the women out of their houses. We are saying that woman who was saying, I don't have capital, I cannot afford, but if these women are mobilized in different groups in their villages, they are able to get some income, some funds from some of these government initiatives, and they're able to start up some projects. We have women who are now thriving in poultry, they are thriving in even some exports. So that, I think, is partly a solution to this outcry of saying that let women engage in more productive work. Yeah.
Well, if you have just joined us, we are talking about the impact of climate change on women in the informal sector. And if you want to be part of the conversation, go to our social media platforms, that is on Twitter, on Facebook, and look out for NTV Uganda or myself, Idris Matusegawa. Use the hashtag make care work matter. Yeah, that's the hashtag. Now, just going back to the conversation, and Ms. Elliott, I'll come to you on this. The budget process is due for the next financial year. Who do you think are the losers and the winners when policies and the budgets are not so inclusive on what climate change does to women in the informal sector?
Well, thank you so much. The losers and the gainers. Definitely it is women and the girls and the most vulnerable persons. When you look at the budget processes, first of all, as I said before, at the consultation level, there are very, very few women and girls that are consulted. And if you are in the space of, if you are in that space of consultation, still you may not be given time to really tell the world what it means by unpaid care work, what it means by climate change impacts on women. And so it becomes very hard for us. First of all, when you look at the ministerial policy statements that we have for 2022-23, and mainly on human capital development, you find that the programs that are there, the health that is also impacted by climate change, education that is impacted by climate change, and then the water and sanitation, which is very key for us as women. And then when I take it back to what you were saying in terms of the micro, the meso, and macro levels, you find that really women lose a lot. Esther has just mentioned that when you look at the plans and budgets for this country, you find that the higher amount of money goes to security and it goes to infrastructure. And really, I really want to appreciate the planners and the government of Uganda, and how really President Museveni says that it's very important to have peace, it's very important to have infrastructure before you talk about all those things. But referring to what is happening now in terms of the development processes, first of all, the Sustainable Development Goals, and when you look at the Vision 2040 for Uganda, and then consider the responsiveness of our budgets, you find that women lose. And it's not about advocating, it's not about making voice, but it is about being fair when we're doing our plans. He can tell you strongly in his space. He talks like a woman. When he's talking, he talks like a woman. It's like he's not in those shoes, and we would want to see many people being in those shoes. I love the slogan that we have at Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, making the budget centered for each and every person, and centered for the girl, centered for the boy, centered for the woman, centered for the man, centered for the person with special needs, and definitely centered in terms of location when you move across Uganda. If we talk of saying that we put more money in infrastructure and maybe road and transport, it is okay, but where? Where should we have these roads? Should we have the highways? It's good, everyone says, when you are going to Entebbe Airport, it's a 30 minutes drive. But then what about if you are saying that Uganda is a backbone agriculture is a backbone of Uganda, and then you say 75% of women are in agriculture, but then you are not caring about climate change financing. You are not caring about unpaid care work that we are talking about. As Esther says, I know many people bring out things, civil society, talk about unpaid care work. But if you're a boy or a man who has grown from a household where there has been a woman that is a breadwinner, you will go out and be a champion and say, there are women who are breadwinners. Yeah. You know? And indeed, if you don't budget for them, first of all, he talks about the parish development model. If we are budgeting and we are not responsive to know that those categories that I've mentioned are part of the development process, then we may not really see a lot in terms of economic growth for this country. Don't ask me, I'm not an economist. But it is something that we need to understand, that if we are gender responsive, if we have responsive plans and budgets, then even women in the small medium enterprises will add a lot to our economy. But if you say, let's put all the money in roads, then, but this woman will not be able to use this road. Remember, they don't have cars. If you have been in Nakasero in the morning, I think all of us have been in Nakasero in the morning by 3. You find women coming with food from different regions of the country. And this was a very good example for us during COVID. In Uganda, we had food. Yep. But the people who are bringing food were these women. But there is no food that you are going to find on Northern Bypass. You will not find food maybe on Kabale Mbarara Road. You will find food inside. You said you worked in Palisa. You will find food inside in Ikiki. Inside there. And how, if you are not considering this woman inside there, where there are floods that are going to take the bridge, and this woman can't even have transport to cross that bridge, then it means you are not, it means you are making them losers. In these budget processes, definitely women are losers. And first of all, yes, Esther, you are talking about government bringing out the Myoga, bringing out the Women Entrepreneurship Program and the Youth Livelihood Program. Where is it in this budget? Where is it in this budget? No one is looking at it in different ways, that there are youth that really received this money. But even before they realized the profits, it was over, you know? He was talking about the credit. Where is the credit, and who can really access this credit? Yeah. It's like he talked about this daughter who thought that he owned land because she inherited land. But then what about if you come to this land that I own, but I can't access it? So it becomes a very big problem, and that's why we think that the budget should be looking at this. Our plans should be looking at this. They should be responsive in a way that they put all those senses that is happening, that if I have women in different regions of this country, there are categories of women. There are those who have gone to school that they can earn salary. But there are those who can't earn salary and they are working at home and in the field. And if I'm planning, if let's say I'm planning for wealth creation and I want to bring out programs like the parish development model and we are going to give this type of money, yeah, which women are you going to give this money? And how much money are you going to give them? Why should we put all these things of the kratos when we know that women don't have kratos? And you know, this woman has been doing unpaid care work. No account in the bank, no circle that this woman has more than 1 million, and then you want this woman to participate in the development of your nation. It's a question, and I don't have the answer now. Yeah. So we are still losers.
We are discussing it, in fact. Yes. And if you have just joined us, I want to remind you that the hashtag is #MakeCareCount, and it's right there on our screens. Just go to our social media platforms, that is on Twitter and Facebook, and tell us what is your opinion on the issue that we are discussing today. And Mr. Walgembe, I want to come to you directly. Ms. Elliott has mentioned so much about how the budget should be inclusive and mindful on women in the informal sector and making sure that they are taken care of. How do you think the Mwananchi, the small woman in Karamoja, in the outskirts of the city, how can they make their voice be heard so that they are included in the budget?
So I think what government ought to do, first of all, these women who engage in this kind of work are in dispersed places. They are in different homes and so on. So it makes it hard for them to come up with a unified kind of voice. So that has always been a hindrance for them to be able to say, this is what we want, and so on. Even when you look at the working conditions that some of them do go through. Some people are paid.
Work under.
Yeah, some maids are paid 20,000, some are paid 30,000. Some maids work and then they are not paid.
And actually treated horribly. Sometimes.
Treated horribly, you know, which is a disgrace because this is someone else's daughter, you know, and because life is uncertain, you don't really know how your own children will end up because that's not something you control. So I think government needs to ensure that it supports the creation of better working conditions for these women. Number two is to ensure that they listen to their representatives. You know, you have CS Bagakcha was there this morning and we're discussing how to work together to push to push this agenda. So I'm happy that you know, we're already talking about these issues. So when the Federation working with CS Bag and others are able to highlight these concerns, what we ask of government is to take these issues seriously. You know, there's a difference between listening and acting on what you have heard. You know, you can hear, we are consulting, bring your position paper, and then at the end of the day, you just do what you intended to do in the first place. So we want a certain level of taking the policy proposals that we make to government in these areas very seriously. The other issue is inclusion at all levels of budget consultations. You know, saying that we have so many MPs, women MPs, we have so many ministers at the national level is not enough. Let's listen to these women at that level. Let's consult them. You know, you have a meeting where people are discussing women empowerment and there is one woman, you know. Now that does not make sense. Let's have more women participate, especially at the local level. And I think that's something that government can try to do deliberately. And as I said, trying to address the structural imbalances and the societal norms that make it difficult for women to break through. Because we are talking about issues of unpaid work, but once they leave and start businesses, even here, they find difficulties, as I've mentioned. Credit. Government says we are setting up a small business recovery fund. It's good. Then it says, but we need collateral. Yeah. You see, we need collateral. Then we say, but they don't have collateral. Well, we shall see what to do. We shall see what. By the end of the day, the banks decide we need collateral. It's also, it means you're excluding a big chunk of the SMEs that you want to benefit. But I'm happy that when we are discussing the Small Business Recovery Fund particularly, we insisted that there should be no minimum amount. You see, because by putting a floor on how much people can borrow, it means you're kicking out people. But you said no, even if people are borrowing 500,000, let them borrow that 500,000. Secondly, government has also tried to put together this issue of immovable property, which can be used as collateral. we need to do more to sensitize our women that some of the assets that your handbag, once you just start, can act as collateral. Your earrings can act as collateral. Whatever you have, your shoes, your shoes can act as collateral.
Yeah.
So that we don't exclude women. This issue of saying land, 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 I don't think we'll make much progress. So the idea of the registration of interest in movable property, which RSB is managing under their simple platform, I think can be a good way through which we can have more women be able to overcome especially issues of access to credit. Then there's the issue of skills. Women tend to be less educated than their male counterparts because they're spending more time in unpaid work, whatnot. They're not taking time to acquire the skills that they need to be able to either run their business successfully or rise. So government should take special interest in offering special skilling programs that are targeted women, those that are running businesses, those that are in homes, to transition them, retooling and things of the sort. The president started what they call the Presidential Skilling Initiative for Girls. I don't know how
it is.
I think it's on. My only concern is that
actually right down by the parliament.
Yes, it's somewhere. Yes. The challenge I have with it though is that it's not linked to industry. You know, after you skill, because you see, you cannot skill 1,000 people in tailoring. You're going to flood the market. In one village, you're going to have 100 tailors. Then where is the market? Because if everyone, so we need to also do a proper market assessment and link it to industry. You know, so that we are able to take on some of those girls for internships, for apprenticeships, and then later on support them to start their
probably
businesses.
Even skill women in the oil and gas sector now that we are entering that.
Exactly.
Can I add on
Ms.
something
Sister,
small?
please.
Yeah. I want to add something on that question on how can we involve the local woman to have a voice in the budget process. We are implementing unpaid care and domestic work in partnership with the UONET and Oxfam in Kampala. And currently we are in Nakawa and Makindye division, where we are engaging the councillors at the community level to be able to pick the views and opinion from even that woman who is seated at home. What do you need? What do you think the budget should be increased for your own benefit? And this has helped a lot in that the councillors we are working with are very cooperative and actually go to the ground and engage the women, ask the questions, and this, in so doing, of course, we are able to pick what the woman at the grassroots is speaking. And this we continue to also encourage the leaders in the community that you cannot plan for me without knowing what is my need. We want deliberate effort by the leaders in your respective position. I'm calling upon you. Do not think for the community, for the low person. Engage them, involve them, ask their opinions, and actually keep going back and forth to see how this moves. So with the councillors that we are working with, I've done a great job. And I do believe that this is the best way we can have the women's voices on those decision-making tables, especially when it comes to the budget processes.
This is indeed a very important discussion, but we have run out of time, and I will give each one of us, the panelists, a chance to have a conclusive remark, and I'll start with you, Ms. Esther. What is your conclusive remark? What is the way forward?
Okay.
What are those key things that you would want to see happen?
Okay, thank you very much, Elvis. First of all, my call is to you, the women. Please get out of your homes and go and work. And for you who is already working, always aim for the highest position, always aim to create change wherever you are. Serve the communities. It takes us, the women, to be able to lift ourselves out of where we are. But you realize most of us, we are laid back. We do not compete very well in our workplaces. We sit back and relax, and we think, oh, I cannot go for that position. It is for the men. No, God created us equal, and we all need to participate in these in all the spaces that we are called to serve. And I congratulate the women leaders that we have, the vice president, and now we just have a speaker. So I congratulate you. And also this is also a call to the men. Support gender equality. Gender equality is not a competition with the men. It's not saying that we want to be above the men. We are just saying that let us have an equal playground so that we all benefit from the opportunities that are available. So we cannot do it on our own. We want you, the men, to join us, and we want to see you in the kitchen. We want to see you washing the clothes as well. It does no harm. And then maybe lastly, to the government of Uganda, is to say let us have the budgets that really benefit the women and the girls, so that we bring the women out of the kitchen and we put them on the platform. Thank you very much, and it has been an honor to be on this platform today. Thank you
so much. Mr. John Walugembe.
Well, I thank you for inviting me, NTV, UONET, Oxfam, for organizing this and for having given us this platform. The issues that we mentioned here of unpaid work, of climate change, of women who are running micro and small businesses, we are not, it's not a favor that we are asking that please help them. No. This is the logical thing. It economically makes sense. And I think what we need are more champions, both men and women, who are able to highlight these issues to ensure that sustainable change. She mentioned about men starting to wash dishes. At least if you can't wash dishes, buy a dishwashing machine. If you can't wash clothes, buy a, what do they call it?
A washing machine.
Washing machine. So, you know, to make sure that you allow your wife to also have time to do other things. You know, so I think we all have work to do, starting from our homes up to the policy makers. Thank you very much and wish you a great day.
Miss Elliott.
Well, thank you so much. It has been an honor. And I must say that in my conclusive remarks that I'm happy that Uganda is looking at mindset change as a program. And I think this is the beginning. We must know that the impact of climate change to the women in the informal sector is real, and we can't talk about sustainable development if we are not responsive. And responsive in nature that we need definitely more men and more boys that are gender sensitive in nature and just need to know that we can't talk about gender equality if we are not talking about gender inequity. So we all need to be fair to each other, and we need to apply justice. And I think for me, this year is the beginning where we are going to be implementing the parish development model, of which I think is a very good model for us to be able again to steer up our planning and budgeting processes. So I request that as we implement this program, let's not run it like the way we ran the poverty alleviation program. With those few remarks, I am happy that this was a short time, but very engaging. Dear viewers, we appreciate you, and I want to appreciate Uganda Women's Network that has really been amplifying the voices of women with other members in the network, and definitely appreciate Oxfam for ever funding these programs where women in the informal sector matters a lot for this country's development.
Well, thank you so much, panelists, for having this wonderful and informative dialogue. And thank you, who has been at home. And if you have missed a bit of this conversation, go to our YouTube channel, look out for NTV Uganda, or our social media platforms, that is on Facebook and Twitter. Look out for the hashtag #MakeCareCount, and look out for NTV Uganda or myself, Idris Matusegawa, and be part of the conversation. The conversation does not stop here. And remember, progress is progress, no matter how small. We shall catch you next time. Bye-bye.